So, James, PayPal is looking to expand its footprint. It's applied to the Utah Department of Finance and the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to establish PayPal Bank.
I've heard about this. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it's going to let it provide business lending solutions more efficiently, as it says. It would also offer interest-bearing FDIC insured savings accounts.
Mm,
And most importantly, it'll allow it to seek direct membership in the card networks to,
right.
quote, complement its existing processing and settlement relationship with banks.
Yeah, sure.
So
Interesting.
yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting. It's gonna put a twist in the competitive landscape,
PayPal is so interesting to me. I feel like they're kind of this outlier right now where I don't really know what PayPal is anymore. Like if you
right?
think about like Stripe or Square, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I know exactly what they are. And then and then it's like the bigger ones like Fiserv and TSYS but then it's like, I don't know, PayPal. It's like, what is PayPal anymore? Because they have so many different tentacles out and it's like, I don't really know
Right.
what their focus is or if they even have one. So I don't know. It's a very interesting kind of because like I have friends over there that I'll talk. It's interesting because like I talked to them probably a few months ago. We were working on a deal with ISOAMP, and it seems like man, there's this whole division about going directly after merchants because they have their point of sale and some of that they bought. But then those people don't seem to know the people on the other side of the business that I've talked to about other things, and so it's just like a really large kind of
Because it's so big,
it's
right?
so big, but again, I'm still not totally sure I understand exactly what the focus is there. But anyway, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they use this banking. I mean, to me, that's more of a common like cost reduction, vertical integration type situation where it's like, yeah, let's just become the bank so we can save money and do
So we can
interesting
save
things.
money, right?
Yeah.
Right. Next up, to the legions of retailers that are panning the proposal to settle the decades-long battle with Visa and MasterCard, you can now
Hmm.
add Walmart.
Really?
Yeah. They filed a brief with the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of New York complaining that the class of merchants and their lawyers, quote, have not, have yet again sold out their fellow class members, close quote.
Hmm.
They want the court to reject the proposed settlement, and decertify the class. Alternatively, they said they want the court to grant the class members the right to opt out of the mandatory class and redefine the class so as to carve out large national retailers.
Hmm. So they can do their
Now,
own settlement.
so they can do their own settlement. Um, Walmart said it offered to work with the lawyers representing the class to, quote, share its deep expertise about the payments industry, close quote, and how a proper settlement should work, but they were ignored.
Hmm.
They also said that the settlement offers, quote, illusory relief from the defendant's honor roll card rules,
Hmm.
that the surcharging and discounting remedies conflict with Walmart's business model and are therefore useless,
Hmm.
and that the time limited rate caps um, could be easily circumvented.
Hmm.
Um, Many of these same complaints were put forth in a letter to the court at the same time by the National Retail Federation and the Retail Industry Leaders Association. Um, the bottom line, I think, James, is that it looks highly unlikely that this proposed settlement is going to be approved by the court.
Yeah. Yeah. We're back to the drawing board
Back
there.
to back to the drawing board. This is like the third proposed settlement
Right.
that will have been rejected. So,
Yeah, and I think
uh,
companies like Walmart, I think there's part of it where I think they kind of enjoy the leverage of being, this like ongoing lawsuit. I think yeah, they would love to settle if it was like a really huge amount for them, but I think that they enjoy the leverage of hey, this is ongoing. And it still just puts a little bit more pressure, I think, on Visa and MasterCard as well to not raise interchange rates and things like that. So I think there's some leverage there that's that makes sense for people. And they're not in a big rush to end it.
yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. But, this thing's been going on for
20 years.
essentially a generation.
Yeah.
Over 20 years.
Right. And so it's kind of like as long as it's pending in the courts of like, Visa and MasterCard or overcharging on interchange, then it just kind of adds that ongoing pressure to them. So I don't
And
I
it
don't
also sort of gives some, more credence to people like Dick Durbin to,
right.
push his.
Exactly.
his legislation,
Yep.
right?
Exactly. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Here's another interesting thing. Uh, American Express's CEO Steve Squeri, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, um, has told a group of investors in one of those investor conferences last week that surcharges are bad for consumers.
Mm. Okay.
He was he was responding to a question about the Visa Mastercard proposed settlement. Amex, of course, isn't party to that lawsuit, but Squeri made clear that he doesn't like the notion of surcharging, especially on Amex cards.
Mhm.
He said, quote, I think adding a surcharge is a really bad idea.
Well, no surprise there.
No surprise there. And
Sure.
it's interesting because, Amex has always had sort of like, the stepchild, the poor
Hmm.
stepchild, standing in the credit card arena.
Right.
I remember one time I was at a store, and back in the old days, the regional uh associations would give out these little jackets,
Mm.
that you could wear,
Right.
because they were, especially Northeast acquirers, because it was always up in real cold country.
Sure.
And so I'm in a store, and I'm wearing my thing, and it was sponsored by Amex. It had a little Amex thing on it,
Yeah.
and I said to the you know to the merchant, you take credit cards, right? And he said, yeah, just not that one. And he points to my,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I mean, because there was a long time there where a lot of merchants weren't taking Amex because of the high prices.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Well, and I
know,
think too, I think there's always been a little bit of a misconception around that. I actually worked with Amex probably 4 or 5 years ago to help them increase acceptance. And there was always this misconception because with Amex they don't have debit cards,
right?
right? And so I think what happens is merchants like compare them and they're like, okay, well, let's compare our effective interchange rate of Visa versus Amex. And it's like, well, when you compare like let's say Visa, well, you're running, whatever 0.8 to 1% on debit, roughly interchange effective rate. And then you're running, let's say 2% effective rate on credit, maybe a little higher, maybe even 2.5 depending on the merchant. So when you look at Amex and you're like, well, wow, my average effective rate's 2.2%. Well, yeah, that's because it's only credit cards. There's no debit in there.
Right,
So,
right.
so
Yeah,
it's,
yeah, sure.
I think they've done a pretty good job. I think with Amex Blue, they did a good job of like being able to get more merchants accepting it. And I think that was the right strategic move for them to get companies like Square and Stripe and others to just bundle it in with their normal, acquiring business.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, speaking of Square, last week I reported on how the Fed was considering scaling back its check processing operation.
Hmm.
One obvious reason for that was because the federal government was going to stop issuing checks, and it's probably one of the biggest issuer of checks in the
Right.
country. Um, Now, the U.S. Treasury, you may have read, has minted its last crop of pennies.
Mm.
The rationale is that it costs almost 4 cents to mint a penny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's led to a lot of but the fact that the Treasury isn't going to be minting any more pennies has led to some consternation with merchants. Particularly smaller merchants. What are we going to do if we're
Yep.
not going to have pennies? Well, now it seems Square has a solution for that. Now, according to Square, 19% of transactions it handles are made with cash. A lot of those with food and beverage sellers.
Mm.
Um, and in a given week, it says it handles 16.7 million pennies
Mm.
that come
Wow.
across the counters of businesses using Square in the U.S.
Mm.
So Square now says it's going to do a cash rounding pilot. It's going to automatically round transactions up to the nearest 5 cents. And Square promises, of course, that as it has always done, it will enable back-end transaction process reporting to assist sellers in properly reporting the total dollar amounts for taxes collected.
Mm.
But I mean, I think that's a really interesting thing because I've been wondering about this
Yeah.
myself. Like, okay, we stopped doing pennies. Well, what happens to that
Hmm.
$1.97
Yep.
charge,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah. I
who's
mean, it
going to
was.
make?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that was inevitable. I think I mean, they've been talking about eliminating the penny for like I don't know, 30 years or
Oh,
something,
yeah,
maybe
right,
longer.
exactly.
But yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I think that's the right move. I mean, again, is it really necessary to enforce that versus like, hey, we have this feature. Here's how you can go in and you can choose if you want to round it up or down and click a button and it
Right,
just does it.
right.
That's what we'll probably end up doing with Stackably. Is just give them the option, round it up or down. Because I mean, I think some merchants are still gonna. It's not like there's not gonna be any pennies. I mean, it's gonna take 50 years
No, they're
before
going
it.
to continue
You
for
know,
many, many years.
yeah. So that is interesting though. They're getting out ahead of it.
One of the things I found that was interesting when I was researching this is that um, the doing away with the pennies. One of the winners in this is going to be the Brinks and the armored car
Hmm.
services, because pennies weigh a whole lot of money. I mean, weigh a whole lot, but aren't worth a whole lot of money,
Right. Right. Exactly. Yep.
and weighs down their trucks, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I thought that I hadn't really thought about that part of it, and like that's going to be one of the winners
Yeah.
of doing
Mm.
away with pennies.
Yeah, for sure. That is interesting. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
nickel weighs a lot less than 5 pennies. So,
definitely,
huh.
definitely, yeah,
Yeah, interesting.
and probably costs about the same to mint.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, good stuff,
Well, that's
Patty.
it for this week.
Awesome. Well, thank you as always for sharing your insights and keeping us up to date on the industry.
Yeah, same here. Pleasure to do it, and to all of our listeners, happy holidays.
Absolutely.